Well, of course, you cheap out on the unlimited magic data plan. We opened on Hi Aoyama. Seriously, what is your obsession with the pan and crop tool, dude? Though, I will clarify right now that while this episode does have a lot of his fingerprints all over it, they are actually well covered thanks to some really good direction, including in this very cold opener. I mean, just watching this, you can pick up on some very strong visual storytelling that, while certainly abstract, kind of points to things not going the greatest to say the least. Anyway, the episode proper opened with Ojamajo sending out for the day at the Maho-dou, whilst also giving a little tutorial of their new toy that, according to Hobby Lake Japan, went for about $15 back in the day. Ah, the good old days before inflation. But yeah, unlike with certain other shows, I will categorize this as good product placement, as this little rotary cell phone gave us a little world building as we learned that the thing was run on seeds, so it's more environmentally friendly than alkaline at least, and it was also kind of cleverly foreshadowing a later moment in this very episode. Meanwhile, Ompu and her mom were meeting with this guy whose pants matched perfectly with the couch behind him. He was inviting the little idol to a big concert where many up-and-coming artists were set to appear. Both the mother and daughter were on board with this until the former heard where the venue would be. This led into another blatant Aoyama pan and crop sequence, though it is easily ignorable thanks to the great layout here of Ompu and the man being shrouded in shadows to symbolize Mrs. Segawa chewing them out as some of that good old PTSD start to kick in. But yeah, because of her own past with that venue, she tried to convince her daughter to turn down the offer in spite of the fact that it could really boost her career. Written by Gen Urobuchi. It's a joke, damn it. Though, considering what's going to happen in this episode, I don't think it would be that much of a stretch, really. Anyway, understandably, Ompu wasn't going to hear any of it, so she went to the Maho-dou to vent her frustrations. Hana, continuing to show little bits of growth, was able to pick up on this, leading to her crying and forcing Ompu to sing her that song again. And like I said last time, this song would be the best part of this episode, though not this particular verse. You'll see what I mean, and at least this was some more good foreshadowing. Anyway, she did eventually return home, but still wasn't willing to talk to her mom, even though something was clearly bothering her. Thus, the next day, she conferred with the other Ojamajo, and in the process, revealed that her mother had also been an idol back in the day, and how that might have had something to do with her current issues. Doremi suggested that they use the magical stage to get some answers, and while it probably could have just have shown them some images of Mrs. Segawa's past, I guess it decided to open the gates for this one. At first, it seemed like the Ojamajo had been transported away from the Maho-dou, while either that or maybe they actually are in the same spot in space and the planet had rotated them to a different spot. Hey, just be glad you didn't melt into a New York City wall. But yeah, as soon as they stumbled upon a rotary payphone that didn't accept telephone cards, it became clear where, or rather when they were, as they ended up calling a Majorika who was still a witch. So let me get this straight. Brainwashing and healing magic are forbidden, but possibly breaking the space-time continuum is a-okay. Granted, the latter can be used and abused in horrible ways, but still. But yeah, obviously this was meant to be the magical stage's very roundabout way of revealing Mrs. Segawa's past to Ojamajo. Well, either that or maybe it wants them to stop the Great Hinamizawa disaster. Y'all got 3 years to figure things out. But yeah, they decided to explore their town of the past that was drawn in crayon. Now you see, this is what happens when you let Aoyama handle your finances. They ended up at the Maho-dou, where thankfully Hazuki knew the rules about preserving the space-time continuum.
If you ever travel back in time, don't step on anything.
And prevented Doremi from likely turning Majorika into a frog a couple decades early. And yet, she then almost immediately pulled a Marty McFly when she saw her mom as a child pass by. Yeah, I don't think you should go. Your old man is keeping a good eye on her. They stopped by what was going to be a CD shop in their present day, but was currently selling records and Macintoshes by the looks of it. And then ironically, that entire store would be replaced with even more products from that same company. While there, they also learned that Ompu's future mother was participating at a concert that night, and not too surprisingly, it was going to be at the same venue that Ompu had been invited to in the present. Figuring of course that they could get some answers there, they snuck into the event. Then for her performance, they got a big fancy prop stage that I'm sure would have looked nice, but destiny can be a cruel mistress sometimes. Ompu tried to help her future mother, but was held back by both her friends and the magical stage, which decided to take them back to the present already. Okay, so admittedly, this is a bit more of a personal issue, so I'll just try to get out of the way here so it doesn't become a big part of the closing thoughts. But, yeah, I really do wish that they had done just a little bit more with this time travel stuff. I mean, if you couldn't tell by all the references and merch I have, I am a bit of a geek when it comes to time travel stories. Granted, I know the show isn't meant to be science fiction, even though they did bring up at least the basics of the space-time continuum. Thus, while I'm not expecting a high-concept, mind-blowing stuff like them creating a massive bootstrap paradox, where they were always destined to get involved in an event of the past.
I mean, if she's my grandmother, who's my grandfather? You are!
I kind of wish they had done something that could have affected the present. Hell, they kind of had something set up here, with Doremi calling and telling her name to a pre-episode 1 Majorika. Maybe this could have led to a little bit in this next scene of Majorika saying, "Come to think of it, the name Doremi has always been in the back of my head for some reason." Probably should have taken that as a warning. I'm not asking for much, just something cute like that to give a little bit more context to current events. I'm not saying they have to go full like Pokemon Forever, just something. Anyway, it's not a big deal, because the real me of this episode was this really nicely directed reveal of Mrs. Segawa's fall from grace, as while her physical injuries were just minor, she suffered heavy mental trauma that forced her to retire soon after the accident. And again, I have to emphasize the great direction here, because even though the Aoyama-isms were still there, with this Ojamajo PNG just spinning around and reminding me a little bit too much of that doll, it was neglectable, as they did effectively impart this strong and unfortunately very real tale within less than just a minute of screen time. And with this new knowledge, Ompu was able to understand her mother's reasoning that, while not entirely justified, I mean, what are the odds that the same thing are going to happen to your daughter? She did understand that she was legit worried about her, like a good parent should be. Not to mention again, her traumatic wounds were so deep that they resulted in selective mutism. Thus, Ompu decided to help her by screwing over the space-time continuum and letting her sing. Now, of course, it was just a dream, and while left vague, I think it was implied that some form of magic, either Ompu's own spell or the magical stage, let them both see how her concert would have played out. Good thing too, because if she did mess with the timeline, I'm pretty sure Shocker would take over, and then the Kamen Riders would do absolutely nothing about it. God, that movie sucked. And yeah, I also really like this little touch of Ompu getting a variation of her usual casting animation with a much more scared and desperate looking expression. From there, we possibly learned where Ompu's lullaby originated from. Again, this is a dream sequence, so it's hard to say whether or not this was going to be the song Mrs. Segawa was going to sing. Though personally, I do prefer the idea of Ompu inheriting this song from her mother. Then with that, the episode ended with the two reconciling, and Ompu performing, whilst her mother was greeted by an old fan of hers, reassuring that while cut short, her idol career did make a difference in someone's life, and the next generation would carry the baton into the future. This was a really nice Ompu episode that informed a lot about her character. We got to see how, in spite of how turbulent their relationship seemed to be, the purple Ojamajo did indeed love her mother. And this was all told to us through some very subtle yet powerful direction. And while I personally would have appreciated a few more time travel shenanigans, I can't really complain too much when that wasn't really the main focus of the episode itself. Direction for this episode was done by the very talented Yasuo Yamayoshi, who's probably best known for directing Kinnikuman and a good chunk of the first 3 seasons of Precure. They were a very solid director who even managed to cover up for many of Furukawa Aoyama's usual animation shortcuts by focusing on what was most important for especially an episode like this, the emotions of the characters. Sadly, they passed away about 6 years after this episode aired in 2006, though fortunately, this will be far from their last episode, so we still got a lot more to enjoy from them. It certainly helps when they're given a strong, character-focused script like this. While their relationship in the first season was rocky to say the least, there was always a sense that Ompu and her mother cared for one another, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to take the idol thing as far as they did. And this episode at least gave us assurance that Mrs. Seigawa wasn't neglectful and would try to do what's best for her daughter, even if a little misguided just by her own experiences. In exchange, Ompu is able to further develop by showing that she can be understanding of her mother's distress, which again, for as short as the sequence was, it did a good job showing how childhood trauma can lead to very unfortunate effects like selective mutism. Yet, through such massive misfortune, new possibilities were opened up for the next generation, which Ompu was able to recognize and want to foster for the sake of her mother, who in turn realized that she shouldn't be holding her daughter back. It was a very well told mother and daughter tale, with probably one of the best applications of that little lullaby with the kind of sort of duet. And while I personally would have liked to have seen them have a little more time travel fun, I can understand why they didn't do more with it. Though they also could have cut out or shortened that transformation sequence to at least sleep in a few more time travel shenanigans, but whatever, still a really good episode that will remain timeless. The next part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Openings ranking video should be out sometime later this week. And after that, we might do a bit of an unplanned video after I got inspired by some recent episodes of Delicious Party Pre-Cure. Let's just say we'll probably revisit an old video, though with a little bit more of a Sentai flavor. You'll see what I mean, and how we're going to tie it to the current season of that franchise. And until then though, for now my friends, and well, I guess the word line might have changed just a little bit. Well, I wonder if anything interesting has happened over these past couple of years. Ooh. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go microwave some bananas or something.